Joining me on the line, he is from We Are Iowa Local 5, the sports director, Grand Poobah, and everybody bows down to his greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Jonathan Schaeffer. Hey, Jonathan, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, B-sox?
So late night last night, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. News can break a couple hours earlier. It was inevitable in a lot of people's minds, but we make do with what we're given.
So last night the news comes out that Steve Prohm no longer the coach of Iowa State. Is it true it was kind of mutual?
Yeah, I mean that's at least the press release that it gave out, or the sense the press release gave out. And again, with Jamie Pollard's video this morning, you kind of got that sense that both of them were a bit on the same page to the extent of it's going to take some rebuilding. I'm sure Steve Prohm probably saw himself as the capable body to do the rebuild.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think Jamie Pollard was just like, you know what, if we're going to go a new direction, we're going to have to go full on new direction. It's not going to be 60-40. It's got to be 100%. So
I will tell you this, and we'll get to what you think in a second to see if I'm just way wrong on this, but I was a little surprised they pulled the plug on him this quick.
Yeah, I mean, so coming into this season, I would have said the same thing. I think that it was a year where there's a lot of rebuilding expectations. It's COVID, so it's kind of a funky season already. But when you go over in the Big 12 with some of the pieces that they had, and in a conference where Kansas State was very beatable at the very minimum, and TCU was right there too, as a team that Iowa State could have taken down a couple times this year too. It just, the writing was kind of on the wall that something's off. It's not fitting what it needs to. And so I think it was a decision where you're coming out of a pandemic and you need people excited and into the basketball team as much as they are the football team. And when you're coming off 2-22, that just doesn't really generate a ton of buzz.
Yeah, I can see it like that. I guess the part that sticks out to me is the money issues that they've made very public over the last few months. Of how, hey, things, we're not rolling in $100 bills right now. But
yeah, and
between
and
that,
yeah, you're not wrong. No, sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
Well, basically, it's just like between the money issue, it being a COVID year, it being a weird year. Part of me thought, okay, let's just write this year off.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And the money side of things is the interesting aspect to this. Like, all right, did you really need to spend the money on the buyout? What you'll spend now for a new contract? And again, Pollard mentioned that in the video he released this morning. Again, 9.5-minute video. So if you have 10 minutes, watch it because it gives you a lot of clarity on kind of what Jamie Pollard's mindset was with it. But he said it in that video, we've got to get creative financially with how this next contract is going to work or how things are going to work because, there's money lost over the last year. So that's one aspect of things where they're not going to be able to drop $5 million a year or even probably $3 or $3.5 million a year right now on a new coaching hire. But again, they'll get creative.
We'll get to the new coaching hire in just a second. Jon Schaeffer from We Are Iowa Local 5 joining me on the line right now. With Steve Prohm in mind, I kind of get the feeling that everybody likes him, but something just didn't work towards the end. He's going to land on his feet, right?
Yeah, he's going to get. You got to remember, he had a ton of success prior to coming into this program, and so I think at Murray State, he was very successful there. He'll land at another mid-major type of school, I think, after this for the time being, and incredible human being. I think that's the one, I said it last night is you can say what you want about, the outcome of the game on the floor. And it obviously wasn't the results that Steve Prohm wanted the last couple of seasons and certainly the players and fans wanted. But you can't judge him as a human being based off that because what he is as a person is incredible. Just the nicest guy to work with.
Yeah.
Happy, just pleasant, easygoing, and very respectful. And so I think that part of things is what you that human side of it, you feel bad for him in that sense because he's a family man. He definitely invested himself in Ames and the community, and so it's tough to see someone like that go.
It kind of reminds you of like a Dan McCarney or Paul Rhodes.
Yeah, definitely. I'd compare it certainly to a Paul Rhodes kind of feel where you have that early success, things kind of fizzle out, but he's a passionate person who is just a good human being, and unfortunately, it doesn't always pay off.
The thing I will say that was kind of interesting, I was looking back at his schedule or his record, And yeah, the tail end wasn't great, but I mean, he had 2 conference or Big 12 conference tournament championships. Things go south, and essentially what, a year and a half, and he's out the door.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of writing on the wall in between those conference championships that there might be an issue or two. Those first 2 years were really, they want to say with the Fred Hoiberg guys, but those were his guys too, and they bought into what he was putting down there, and that's why they got to the Sweet 16 year one, and that's why they were an NCAA tournament team the second year with them too.
What was
so
it?
I mean,
What was the stat about he had like more NBA players in Iowa State history, or it was something crazy like that, right?
You look at it. I mean, that team from, what was it, that first year team or the second? The first year team has like 7 pros right now. I mean, you got Abdul Nader, you've got Monte Morris, George Newing, Matt Thomas, Deontay Burton was a pro briefly. I mean, they're loaded with a handful of guys that went pro after moving on from college with Steve Prohm. So I mean, and then you got Halliburton in there, and certainly you could have a couple more as time goes on, but he certainly turned out some top quality prospects and that kind of stuff. It's just the results didn't amount to it. And you got to remember, Tyrese Halliburton was hurt half the season last year, you know, and so he was dealing with that. And he got that team to a Big 12 championship the year prior with Mario Shayok and Michael Jacobson and some of those guys, a team that many kind of weren't sure, all right, it could be good, maybe not great, and they go win a Big 12 championship only to get knocked off by Ohio State in that opening round, which was just a terrible matchup for them overall. But it was rough. I think Iowa State fans got that taste of success through the Hoiberg years. They wanted it sustained after Fred left. Steve did that for a couple of years, but then, it was hit or miss, and then, here we are now where it really fizzled.
There's part of me that it's like, if I'm Matt Campbell looking at this, and it's like, man, if I have a bad year or two, my ass might be out the door.
Yeah, no kidding. I think the leash on Matt Campbell might be a little bit longer just because he's being now the savior of the football program. But no, I certainly think, Iowa State fans are extremely loyal. Don't get me wrong. But there's one thing I've always felt about them is that they believe that they should be competing with Kansas and the top end of the Big 12 every year, whether that's football or basketball.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with expecting that. Unfortunately, someone has to be at the bottom of the league at some point, and Iowa State was that team this year.
Jonathan Schaeffer from We Are Iowa Local 5 joining me to talk about Steve Prohm, Iowa State, and a whole lot more. That brings us to the next part of it. Who's going to be the next coach? If you were going to narrow it down to 3, because I've seen like lists where they list like 20 people, it's like, okay, that's fine. Who do you think are the top 3?
I think 1A or number 1 would probably be TJ Otzelberger, the former assistant under Fred Hoiberg. Went on to SDSU, had plenty of success there. Has now been at UNLV. I think he's in his 2nd or 3rd season there and has struggled a little bit there. It's a little bit more competitive, but he really hasn't had an opportunity to really get his system set in with everything going on. So I think he's kind of the front runner there, in my opinion. To be honest, that's really the only person that I've been on. I know there's a lot of other names going around. There's been mentions of Darren DeVries out of Drake as someone that Jamie Pollard could look into, but I'm going to be honest. I think that Darren DeVries is quite happy at Drake, and I think that's a job that suits him extremely well, and he's not done there yet. He's got a lot of excitement, and from the sound of it, Jamie Pollard thinks it's going to move pretty quick, and that's hard to do if you're going to go get a coach who's in the NCAA tournament right now. The other name that pops up is Fred Hoiberg. Wouldn't that be something, huh?
And real quick, I was talking to my friends last night, and off the air, I was telling you that they're all season ticket holders up at Iowa State, and I don't think he'll be the next coach, but you have to make that call, right? Yeah.
I mean, you at least show some interest, but at the same time, I think I'd already know the answer. It's funny, you talk to people in your circles and, you have Iowa State fans ingrained in them, and they sit there and say, Fred's going to be the guy next, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, it's got to be Fred, right? And it's like, I get where you're coming from, but look at the circumstances where Fred left.
Yeah.
Look at where he's at now. He's still trying to rebuild the Nebraska program. There's no guarantee he can rebuild Iowa State to what it was. I have no doubt in my mind that he could do it, but at the same time, he's got some anonymity around Lincoln, Nebraska. That's one aspect. I think Fred doesn't shy away from a spotlight, but he also doesn't love being in it.
Yeah.
he's kind of a Ben Jacobson-esque, maybe a little bit more magnified than that, in the sense of, when he was in Ames, everyone and their brother would stop for a picture.
Yeah.
If you saw Fred Hoiberg. Lincoln, Nebraska, that probably isn't happening quite as frequently. So, that's an aspect of life where maybe it's better to be outside of Ames and not have the major expectation on your shoulders.
It's funny. You bring that up, and it's so true because one of my side gigs is working for the Wolves, running the music. And I can remember there was a night that there was a bunch of Iowa State guys in town with one of the teams that they were playing, and, between that and the Wolves. And Hoiberg showed up, and we put him on the big screen like all night eating and this dude was so fascinated and just eating a bag of popcorn. It was
I mean, it's
you're
insane,
right.
isn't
You're
it?
right.
And so I think those are kind of the three. The other name I'm seeing a lot of is Craig Smith out of Utah State. Obviously, they've had quite the run under him, and they're a tournament team this year. So someone to definitely keep in mind. There could be kind of like, don't be shocked if it is Craig Smith situation. The other thing, too, is I could see Jamie Pollard looking for a little bit of diversity. And there's nothing certainly wrong with that. They've had plenty of assistant coaches come through Iowa State who were plenty qualified, who would add some to the diversity to that Iowa State staff.
Hey, let me ask you this: going back to the last time they did a hired for basketball, and even when they hired for Campbell, do you remember off the top of your head like there being a name that they were like, yes, this is the guy everybody thinks it's going to be? And did Pollard go that route, or did he kind of go a completely different route? I can't remember. So
ironically, Campbell was off my radar. Everyone was talking about the Navy coach when they were hiring for football, and that was kind of the name that we heard as someone who could potentially be there. In some of the more, ingrained circles, I think Campbell was more there. The last basketball hire, everyone thought it was going to be T.J. Otzelberger.
Yeah.
And so I think it surprised people when it wasn't. Now, there's always those rumor mills, and we're not going to stir those up at all. But,
Yes,
I think it's more than Jamie Pollard's decision to make. Obviously he is the athletics director,
Yeah.
and so various people have various input. And so at the end of the day, it's got to be a decision that passes President Winterstein's approval. It's got to pass the board and all that stuff too. So you've got all these people to appease, and sometimes there isn't always agreement on who that should be.
Hey, real quick, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, going to the Jamie Pollard 9-minute video, which I've actually got it linked over at the website, kggo.com. At the very end, when he was talking about, our coaches do it right and all this, was that a little weird?
I don't know if it was weird. I think it was kind of this is who we are, and we're okay saying this is who we are.
It was just, I was watching it this morning, and I heard that part, and I'm like, okay, Jamie, we get it. Was there somebody that said you guys don't do it right, or something? It seemed like he was very defensive about it, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think, the part of that, too, is there's the rumor mill's been stirring. You look at Indiana, and really we should call yesterday Black Monday for college basketball.
Yeah, it really was.
It was a rough day, but if you look at what happened over in Indiana, there was strong indications that alumni had bought out, boosters had paid for the buyouts of some of those coaches that were fired yesterday. And that rumor mill kind of circulated a little bit within the Iowa State community as well. And Jamie Pollard was making the point, I think, that no, that's not the case. This was something we decided to do, and we will not operate like that. And so I think Jamie has been extremely transparent, maybe even to a fault almost, where it doesn't need to be quite this transparent, but you got to give the guy some credit, because not many ADs are willing to put together a 9-minute video explaining the thought process and the steps forward now of what this decision really went into it. And so you got to give him a lot of credit for that, because Jamie's handled everything really well, in my opinion, since this whole pandemic launched.
I'm not coming down on Jamie Pollard at all.
No, I didn't get that at all.
The dude has done amazing things at a school that's very hard to win at in the Big 12. I mean,
yes.
Let's be honest here. But I remember that part. It stuck out to me. I'm like, it was one of those, okay, bud, we get it.
Yeah.
We got you.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
Jonathan Schaeffer from We Are Iowa, Local 5, joining me to talk about all this. One final question with this, then I want to hit you up about the NCAA tournament real quick. What do you think the time frame is on this?
I think we have someone within the next week and a half. If
Wow,
not,
week and a half, huh?
Yeah, it just sounds like I don't know that Jamie Pollard is going to need a search agency for this, especially the financial aspect of that. I think he's got a couple of people in mind. He's probably already been on the phone with them today or with their agents as of today to just try and get the conversation started. I mean, it's a volatile world, and you got to get answers for these athletes. I mean, you're going into an off season now that is going to be a very big one for this team, and you also have recruits that are sitting there kind of in limbo waiting to see what happens as well. And so you also don't want to get someone else coming up and scoop your top candidate out right away with openings at Indiana, Minnesota, and some of those other bigger schools that need hires. And I certainly think Iowa State is a great landing spot for someone coming out of a mid-major right now. Indiana is probably the top job, in my opinion. Minnesota is a little bit of a crapshoot with what they have in the Big Ten, but I think Iowa State is certainly a job that would appeal to a lot of coaches out there.
Over on the other side of things, both Iowa and Drake going to be a part of the NCAA tournament coming up. We're getting long in the tooth, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but you got good feelings about both. What are you thinking?
Yeah, first off, congrats to Darren DeVries and Drake making the tournament. It's only year 3 under DeVries, and he's done this. So big props to them. They've got a tough one against Wichita State Thursday night. That's going to be an old NBC showdown, which is kind of fun to see, but Wichita State's a pretty good team. But Drake should have Tank Hemphill back, who's their leading scorer, which will be big. Obviously, Roman Penn is out for the year. But I think Drake is really set up to, win that one and see what they can do against, I believe it's USC that they'd get the next round. So that would be a fun one to see Saturday. Iowa couldn't have asked for a better region, in my opinion. I know Gonzaga is this world-beating perfect team this year, but Iowa's seen them once before. They know what to expect, and I like Iowa to compete. They're going to have some fun, and you got to give Fran McCaffrey, who just got a nice little extension on his contract, some credit too for all the hard times he's been given by some of us in the media. This team has really stuck together, and they've led a great season, and hopefully they can finish it with a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 run, and who knows, maybe more.
This is where I become a bad Iowa fan. I look at them and what am I missing? Where are they so great? I know Luka Garza is awesome, but it's like Luka Garza and 4 other average guys.
That's the thing. Joe Wieskamp and CJ Frederick are not average. When you watch those two play, they're a lot of fun to watch. And honestly, yes, Luka Garza is the MVP of that team. But if I were to claim a real MVP off of an AP poll or whatever, it'd be CJ Frederick. That team's pulse is so different when he is on the floor. He's just very sound on both ends of the floor, can get inside, play defense. He does it all. And so I think CJ Frederick's kind of the game changer for them. And when Joe Wieskamp is hitting, the kid can hit from anywhere. Him and Jordan Bohannon are some of the most lethal three-point shooters. When they're on, they're on. The only problem is when they're off, they're off.
Oh, they are. There are games where they are awful, man.
Yeah, and so the hope is that you don't run into a stretch like that, but they also prove that they can win a game where they're maybe not shooting the best like they did against Wisconsin last week. I am going to make this point really quick, B-sox. If you're filling out your bracket, pay attention to who is playing in Lucas Oil Stadium and who relies on three-point baskets for being a really big game changer. Because when you get into a football stadium like that, the three-point shooting goes down significantly. We saw it in the Big Ten tournament last week.
What if Iowa and Drake meet in the Sweet 16?
I mean, then you've got to get it. You got to go to the tailor and split a jersey down the middle, don't you?
Yes, you do.
It'd be fun to see Darnell Brody and Luka Garza mix it up in the paint. I have a lot of appreciation for true centers, and unfortunately, I don't think that's a matchup Drake necessarily wants right now, but it'd be a lot of fun, to say the least, for the state of Iowa to see that, especially with the success of Darren DeVries.
Yeah, what if, right?
Big what if.
All right, Jonathan Schaeffer from We Are Iowa, Local 5. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
For your time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
For your time.